Närspelet runt green kan vara en mardröm för många. Det är väldigt lätt att spänna så här. Och då har man en topp över green, eller till och med en duff, rakt ner i bunken. Men en av hemligheterna att bli en riktigt bra närspelare är faktiskt att välja rätt klubba vid de olika lägena. Och du, glöm inte att använda fantasin. Jag ska visa dig ett par lägen. Här har vi ett. Bollen ligger rätt så tjockt. Vi har en bunker framför green. Flaggan står rätt kort in på green. Här är jätteviktigt att välja rätt klubba. Jag väljer givetvis en med väldigt mycket vinkel, eller loft. En sandwich. Det finns till och med lobwedge. Och vinkeln hjälper ju faktiskt bollen att komma upp i luften. Så det här slaget kommer jag våga att svinga igenom. Och det är den andra delen som du ska tänka på. Svinga igenom. Jag ser alldeles för många som hugger ner på bollen och där har du både en topp och en duff. Så jag brukar säga lika lång sving bak som fram. Då får du en känsla av att du skapar fart genom slaget. Ser ut så här. Vet inte om jag någonsin kan slå den där bättre. Här ska vi titta på ett annat läge. När bollen inte ligger på green utan på den finklippta delen utanför. Kan till och med vara fairway. Ungefär så här. Här är ett gott råd att använda den säkraste klubban i baggen. Och faktum är att det oftast är putten. En dålig putt blir aldrig lika dålig som en dålig chip. Och det är faktiskt inte fegt att använda putten utan det är smart. Vad jag vill att du ska tänka på här när man ligger utanför green, det är att vi måste öka på pendeln. För gräset är ju lite strävare, så vi kommer ända fram. Här ska vi titta på en övning som faktiskt kan hjälpa dig att avgöra vilken klubba du ska använda. Putter eller chip. Vad jag gör är att jag lägger upp 2 bollar, använder min lilla järnåtta. Och så slår jag chip. Ja, lite för lång. Och lite för kort. Sen tar jag min putter. Samma läge. Ofta så visar det sig att putten ger ett bättre resultat. Så i början, använd putten för det är smart. Chippa kommer du lära dig. Det här är en till övning. Och den här är faktiskt bra för pitchen. Du behöver inget stort utrymme och du har redan din bag. Så ner med baggen, ta upp din sandwich och så slänger vi ut lite bollar. Tanken är att du verkligen ska slå de här över baggen, alltså en pitch. Det viktiga var ju verkligen att svinga igenom. Så lika långt bak som fram. Enkelt. Och sen är det bara att slå. Lika långt bak som fram. Och ju bättre du blir, ju närmare över baggen kan du landa bollen. Våga att svinga igenom. Det var ju nyckeln i det här. Inte hugga ner på bollen. Så träna på. Chippen, det är förmodligen en av de mest använda slagen runt greenerna. Det är det låga slaget och så man kan använda vilken klubba man vill. Det första jag vill påpeka är en smalare stans. Det gör vi bara för att vi ska hålla underkroppen mer passiv i pendelrörelsen. Nästa steg är att vi ska jobba med en liten öppen stans. Här. Och det gör vi för att pendeln ska kunna få fritt fram att komma mot målet. Nästa steg blir att jobba med vikt på vänster. Mer vikt på vänster kommer göra att vi kan behålla oss kvar över bollen i själva pendelrörelsen. När klubban nu kommer ner så kommer vi föra fram händerna på vänster ben. Och det gör att klubbans vinkel kommer bli lite lägre. Som gör att vi får ett lägre utgångsriktning på slaget. Och vi får en chip. Nu ska vi titta på bollplaceringen. Bollplaceringen kommer hamna någonstans i mitten eller lite längre bak i stansen. Och det gör vi för att vi vill att klubban ska träffa bollen först och inte duffa eller toppa. Så när vi har gjort det här nu så kommer vi in till själva pendelrörelsen. Och en pendel är en rörelse som är rakt bak och rakt fram. Enkelt att jobba med. Rakt bak, rakt fram. Klubban bakom bollen, mycket vikt på vänster. Fram med händerna. Där. Och där har vi den. Här har vi en bra övning för dig att behålla vikten på vänster. Och framförallt ligga kvar över bollen när du ska jobba med pendeln. Ställ dig på vänster ben och låt höger tå vila i backen. Det här kommer göra att du kan ligga kvar över bollen och få en bättre rörelse. Det här är en bra övning när det gäller chip. För att du ska lära dig förstå hur dina klubbor fungerar. Hur mycket lyft de ger och hur mycket rull. Lägg ut ett par bollar, börja med en klubba och sen slår vi en chip. När du har slagit de här klubborna så kan du se skillnaden hur högt de flyger eller hur lågt de flyger och hur mycket rull de ger. Träna på det här så kommer du bli en bättre chippare. Okej, tänk på de här sakerna. Uppställning nummer 1, vikt vänster där. Bollplacering långt bak och pendla. Träna på det här. Lycka till!
I'm going to show you how to hit this long chip close to the hole. What we're going to do first is figure out how much green we have to work with. Here obviously we have a lot. We're going to chip the ball just over this high grass onto the green, let it roll to the hole like a putt. The target's going to be right in this area. The ball is going to land in this area and then roll to the hole like a putt. The way to do that is to make sure you have the correct loft on your club. This shot requires less loft. So on a short shot, you'd have more loft, like a 58-degree sand wedge. On a longer shot, this would require less loft, so we're going to use a 7-iron. Here's how the setup works. First, we're going to pick out our target. We're going to make sure the ball is in the center of our stance. We're going to make sure that our weight is on our front foot, and then we're going to also lean the club shaft towards the target, like this. What we don't want is we don't want that club shaft to go backwards. So this would be bad. This would be really good. Here's how it works. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm talking about.
As far as technique goes, chipping is probably the second easiest thing right behind putting to master. I mean, there's not a whole lot to the technique. All you're doing is you're trying to create a slightly descending blow and make some solid contact. little weight in your left foot, hands a little forward, brush the grass, and you've got the technique more or less mastered with a little practice. So, how are you going to get good at getting the ball close to the hole so that you can have more up and downs? Well, a lot of people figure, I'm going to go practice, and I'm going to play a lot of golf. And I'm going to probably do that practicing and all that chipping on the golf course with one club. I did it too, and Phil Mickelson did it too. But his teacher convinced him otherwise, and that's what I'm going to try to do with you. I'm going to show you how, if you use multiple clubs, you're going to be able to have more flexibility in your chipping, and you're going to get a lot more of them up and down. When I first started playing, my favorite chipping club was an Arnold Palmer pitching wedge, and I would play it basically from everywhere around the green. Now, one of the first things you'll learn about the short game in general, if you take some lessons or read a good book or watch the tour players, is they're always trying to make the shot, which in this case is a, 25, 20 feet chip shot, trying to make that shot as small as possible by getting the ball on the green as soon as possible. And it's often be called in golf instruction and books and videos, safety spot or safety landing zone. I like about a yard on the green. I'm about a yard off the green right here. If I went one more yard and I go ahead and take out a tee and put that just off line, so it's not going to prevent me from hitting my shot toward the hole, that's a good, safe spot for me to land this shot on line with the pin and have it run out. So, okay, great. I'll read that in the magazine, and I decide that's the thing I want to do, and I take my favorite little pitching wedge, and I go ahead and try to do that. If I land the ball anywhere near that tee with that pitching wedge, that ball is not going to get anywhere near the pin. Not going to run out far enough. What most golfers think is I hit the ball too easy, but they didn't, because what they're trying to do is actually hit the ball to a spot, and they did that very well. The trick is to do the math. Which club will you use if you've got these two, parts of the equation, set in stone? The ball isn't going to move. Your landing spot, can move, but we're determined that's probably your safest, closest spot. Pitching wedge doesn't go far enough. Let's try some other clubs in the bag and see how far they go. Just to start, let's take out an 8-iron, 2 less clubs and loft, and land this ball right here. Little brush technique, same exact technique. And you can see how the ball rolls further, about twice as much further, but still doesn't run far enough to the hole. Which club am I going to need to get it all the way to the hole? Well, pitching wedge went there, 8 went there, so seems to me maybe a 6 might work. So I've got my spot. And one thing you want to do with your spot, you'll see all the good players do this on TV. When you have your spot, make your practice swings away from your ball, looking at your spot. How hard do you make this little downward brushing technique? How hard do you do that so that your ball flies to there? Don't try to lift your ball up to that spot. Once you've got a feel for how far a swing that is and how far that spot is, how much energy you need, then you can just look at your spot, make your swing, and watch the ball run out. In this case, it hit a couple things along the way, but I've got a 2-footer, and I'm probably going to get up and down and go to the next hole very happy. So, great, Brian. If I get to try all of my clubs every time I'm chipping around the green, I can figure out which one I can play this safe landing and have it run out. Well, there's actually an easier way. There's a ratio that was developed long ago, made popular by Paul Runyon, who was the wizard of the short game for many, many years, and a great teacher and player in his own right. And he called it the Rule of 11. Well, it's changed a little bit for modern times here. It's now the Rule of 12 because manufacturers, due to popular demand, have made their golf clubs a little stronger lofted. And the Rule of 11 and the Rule of 12 basically worked on a simple principle. When you're hitting a shot, I don't care what shot it is, a tee shot, but in this case we're hitting a chip shot, the ball flies to one spot and then the ball runs out to another. I always say it's 1 part carry unless you hit a cart path, and then it'll be at least 1 more part carry depending on how many times it hits on the cart path. So what we have right here is my 1 part carry is 2 yards. That 1 yard to get to the fringe and 1 more yard to get to the tee. So I have 2 yards is 1 part carry. So 2 more yards, 1, 2, is 1 part roll. And on and on and on. So as I stand here or back up from my, from my area so I get a little different view, I can say I've got 1 part carry, 1 part roll to where I was standing, 1 part carry, 2 parts roll, 1 part carry, 3 parts roll, 4 parts roll, and then at some point, maybe about 6 parts roll for this 6-iron. Ah, you see, that's the trick. You take the parts roll and you subtract that number from 12, that's why it's the rule of 12, and the number you'll be left with is the club to pick. So in this case, it's a 6-iron. It's 1 part carry, 6 parts roll. I get here, I make my practice swings, I hit my shot, and I've got a 1-footer. Now, Brian, that's great. What if, though, I'm either closer to my spot or, often cases, further away from my spot? Now that 6-iron that was perfect for this shot, from where I was right here 2 yards away, if I fly it, making my practice swings, looking at my spot, if I fly it up to that tee, that ball is going to just, lucky it hit the pin, run way over the green into a bunker, some other trouble. So because I've changed this first part, I have 1, 2 to get back to the ball, 3, 4 to get to my spot. 1 part carry is now 4 yards, so that roll is going to be proportional. 1 part roll, 1, 2, 3, 4 yards, 2 parts roll. So this shot right here is somewhere between 2 and 3 parts roll. So let's just say I want to be aggressive and give myself a chance at getting it to the pin. 3 parts roll, 3 minus 12 is 9. I take out my 9-iron here, look at my spot, make my practice brushes, and then try to land it on line with the pin, even with my spot. And amazingly, we said we wanted to be a little aggressive. The ball ran out about 4 feet past the hole, giving me a really makeable shot. And I wanted to be aggressive. Maybe I wanted to give myself a chance at, getting the ball at least to the hole. You'll find that it doesn't take you long to start seeing all your shots around the green this way, whether it's a chip shot or any other kind of pitch. And I promise you, just like Phil Mickelson, will find out no matter how good you are with that favorite club, if you can just do the math, find your safe spot, pick your club, make your practice swings at your spot, and execute your technique, you're going to have a world-class short game because you're going to be able to chip it close and get up and down from almost anywhere.
So we're in pretty thick rough here, and I want to show you the principles of hitting the shot out of rough, because so many times I've had players say, I'm pretty good around the green, but I really struggle out of the rough. If that's the case, they're probably not doing the correct technique, because if they were doing the hinge and hold method, they would find that that method, along with the lob shot principles, will get the ball out of the rough just fine. We're here in thick rough. The club will get buried up by the grass. You can see the ball is sitting down. Now, we cannot rely on spin to get the ball stopped, because we have so much grass between the club and the ball. The only thing we can use is trajectory. So what we want to do is very similar to the lob shot using the hinge and hold technique. We're going to hinge and hold throughout this shot, but we're going to come in heavy just like a lob shot, and when the ball is sitting down in the rough, we're assessing our lie and we're putting our weight forward. We're driving the club in behind the ball and letting the ball just pop up high and land ever so soft. When we have the ball sitting higher up, that's when we'll level out our weight. So very similar to the lob shot, we open up the face, our weight is forward, and we just plop down right behind the ball, and we get it to pop up ever so softly and release down to the hole. Now obviously it won't be as good as a shot from the fairway, but we can use trajectory to get the ball stopped. Using those same principles, if the ball somehow sits up in the rough like this, we cannot use that method of driving the club into the ground. We'll go right underneath it. So again, using the same type of flop shot, lob shot principles, we level out our weight so that the bottom of the arc is shallow around the ball. We open up the face slightly, but we don't lay it flat like we did for the previous shot where the ball's sitting down. So we open it up, but just not as much, and then we just use the same swing. And I'm able to get the ball up high and soft and control it somewhat. So not always when we're in the rough are we trying to get the ball to land softly. A lot of times we can be in the rough and the pin can be in back and we need the ball to release. So when we do that, we still are not going to be able to catch the ball solidly. We have grass in between the club and the ball. So what we do here is the same technique of falling in behind the ball, letting the club just fall right in behind the ball, but we scoot the ball back in our stance and square up the club face. This is going to give it less loft and force the ball out lower out of the rough and with more release. You can see the ball is further back in my stance, letting the club come into the ground behind the ball. We're not trying to catch the ball first. There's too much grass there. So we're playing like a little mini flop shot, even though the face is square, and we're trying to get it to release. You can see the ball is further back in my stance, and I just drive the club behind the ball, and I let the ball pop up and release. It'll help us get to the back pins.
So I had a question about an uphill chip shot, and that was a pretty nice question, actually. Something that I overlooked. This is going to help round out, you know, your scoring ability around the greens. Now that uphill chip shot, you basically have two options. If the lie is not too severe, and you know you want that ball to check a little bit on the green, you don't want it to roll out, you can go ahead and keep the weight on that front side. Thing is, when you keep the weight on the front side, you'll have a tendency to skip slightly into the slope, and it'll have a slight gouge to it. This will impart a little bit more spin, right? And it'll have a tendency to come out lower and a little more hot. So you notice there's a little bit of a gouge to that. That's okay as long as you catch the ball first. Now, if you're trying to hit a full shot with this, wouldn't recommend this at all. Then you're really going to stick it in the dirt and hurt yourself, and you'll have a tendency to pull the shot. So you want to make sure that your head stays behind the ball, even though your weight is in front of the ball. That way you'll get great contact with the golf ball with a slight gouge. Now, if the slope gets even more severe, however, then I recommend you stay with the back foot. You'll have a tendency, what you want to do is open up your back foot for support, better stability, and you're going to keep the weight on the inside of that back foot. And from here, we're going to follow the slope with the skip. So you'll notice it's still a shoulder movement, and I'm not trying to keep my lower body quiet, okay? As long as that pressure point stays on the inside of that right hip, right knee, and right ankle, then the left side, see how my left knee comes in and comes back? Now the whole body can move around this particular pressure point. And this is what's going to give you the stability. And very much like when you're tossing a ball, you don't toss a ball with just the arm. It's still a full body motion, right? Okay. So we stabilize ourselves on the inside of that right hip, right knee, right ankle. And from there, we skip up the slope. Then you get that beautiful crisp contact with the sole of the club with the ground. You get that nice skip across the ground, and boy, that contact feels really, really good. The ball will have a tendency to land nice and soft and roll out a little bit, okay? So you impart less spin doing it this way. So once again, weight forward, butt the head back. This is going to have a tendency to be a little gougy, okay? That's for the slight uphill shot. Even on the slight uphill shot, you can still do it this way on the inside of that right foot. So those are the two options that you have, okay?
We'll see you. All right, guys, here's a fun little shot. I've hit let's say you hit a second shot right next to the green here, but your ball nestles down in a spot where there's no grass. It's a nice little bald spot. It's sitting right down. Now, I know a lot of you would try to chip this out to no avail, kind of blade it out of the hole and scoot it over the green, or you have a tendency to chili dip it a little bit, have a tendency to hit the ground before the ball. what you're going to use is a putter. This is one of Ben Hogan's favorite shots around the green. It's called squeeze play. You're going to play the ball right off your back foot. Play the hands right off your front foot. Same setup as the chipping. Hands right over the front foot, ball right over the back foot. And what you're going to do is you're going to use the shoulders, and we're going to squeeze the ball into the hole with negative loft. What's going to happen when you squeeze down on the ball with negative loft, it has no choice but to pop up, land on the green, and it's going to come out really hot with a lot of topspin. So I basically have about 50 feet after the ball lands here. So, little practice swing. I like it. Squeeze it out. Go, go, go. Not bad. So I'll give you the rear view vision on that one just so you can see, get us nestled nicely down in here. So play it off my back foot, play my hands forward, and squeeze down. See how the ball just popped out of that hole? Landed on the green. Not a bad result, huh? So this is great practice for you to achieve squeezing down and through the ball. You'll notice if you do this with your sand wedge or your pitching wedge, same thing, the ball has no choice but to pop up into the air. For those of you who are trying to lift the ball, right, and the club finishes very high on this side, you'll have a tendency to hit the ground before the ball or blade the ball. So you notice as I squeeze through, the putter stays very, very low to the ground. Imagine a stone skipping on water. It comes in very shallow, skips, and leaves shallower. It doesn't skip up into the air. So it's the same thing when you're chipping. You're skipping very low through the ball. See how my club stays very low to the ground. So if I use a sand wedge, this is my gap wedge actually. So if I skip low through the ball, then the sole of the club can return to the ground, and then the ball can hit the center of the club face. That's where you have loft to lift the ball into the air. Nice and low through the skip, you'll hit some great crisp chip shots. And try that squeeze play, very effective.
Det här läget känner du säkert till. Du hamnar kort en bunker. Du måste få bollen snabbt upp i luften med snabbt stopp. Här har vi en pitch. Men det första du ska veta är att det enda som avgör hur högt bollen kommer, det är klubbans loft eller vinkel. Ofta förknippar golfaren just pitchlaget med kanske en pitching wedge. Men det finns faktiskt